Morning. Morning. Morning, Bob. How you doing? Good.
If you could fix the clock on the wall so that everybody was complying with the same time, we would be all set.
Yep.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
You can all take your seats. I know you all haven't seen each other in 4.5 days. So this is a deficiency bill. We're gonna call the public hearing to order. Representative Walker, any comments?
Good morning. Nope.
All right, let's see. I don't see anybody else. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours to start us off on this.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Senator Austin, Representative Walker. Glad to be here, as well as the distinguished other members of the Appropriations Committee. Just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify in House Bill number 5031, an act making deficiency appropriations for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. So this bill makes deficiency appropriations, which in combination with anticipated Finance Advisory Committee transfers and adjustments of holdbacks, address the majority of shortfalls for fiscal year 2026 as projected by the Office of Policy and Management on January 20th, 2026. We anticipate that a final set of adjustments to the proposed bill will incorporate updated expenditure estimates as well as additional Finance Advisory Committee action and release of withheld funds. As in prior years, we are prepared to work with the Office of Fiscal Analysis and the Appropriations Committee to adjust the deficiency bill to reflect updated estimates as the year progresses. Overall spending levels are projected in the current year present a significant challenge for crafting a deficiency bill which addresses all potential shortfalls that have been identified this year. The Office of Policy and Management has been engaged in detailed expenditure reviews with executive branch agencies to mitigate these identified deficiencies and to identify additional offsetting lapses to the extent necessary to ensure that a final deficiency bill will remain compliant with the constitutional spending cap. As proposed, this bill makes appropriations totaling $78,435,000 for agencies with projected deficiencies for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. Reductions in appropriations totaling $77,121,000 are proposed, resulting in a net increase for fiscal year 2026 appropriations totaling $1.3 million about. Since a portion of both the proposed increases and reductions relate to programs that are partially federally funded, this bill is anticipated to result in a net change to capped appropriations for fiscal year 26, and available room under the expenditure cap for 26 would remain at about $200,000. Additional descriptions of shortfalls projected by OPM as of today are attached to the testimony. I want to note that as projections are revised each month, various agencies not represented in either OPM's January 20th or March 20th forecasts may require additional appropriations, and those agencies that testify today may ultimately find alternative means to mitigating forecasted deficiencies. For example, the Department of Transportation was originally invited to this hearing, but based upon OPM's February 20th projection, we now anticipate that any remaining shortfalls can be accommodated through the Finance Advisory Committee action. As noted earlier in my testimony, OPM stands ready to work with the committee and OFA to revise the bill to reflect updated deficiency projections as they may come along. As in prior years, Finance Advisory Committee action later this fiscal year will be required to address timing of funds availability to ensure agencies can address operational needs to the greatest extent possible until such time as the deficiency appropriations are signed into law. Such transfers may impact requirements reflected in the final bill. I would like to again thank the committee for the opportunity to present this testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think we do have representatives from the agencies available to dive in a little bit deeper as may be needed.
So thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. So we really haven't had any FAC meetings this year. We had one just the other day. Normally we have them once a month. So what is the rationale for not doing FAC all along? Is there a reason why we're not doing that?
In the we didn't have immediate needs, Senator, to hold those FAC meetings, but those are coming now, and we do anticipate to hold them each month the rest of the way throughout the fiscal year. So those will be coming forward.
And the deficiency bill that's in front of us today, you said was relative to anticipated shortages in the beginning of this calendar year in January, not recently, but even in January we had some deficiencies that we knew about that I don't see here, and I'm just opening up your testimony now to see where they are. Some of the things that we have been talking about have been relative to the comptroller. Is there a deficiency relative to either retiree or active duty health care that will show up this year?
So I'll highlight what we have in the back of the testimony, Senator, and then I'm happy to hand the question more deeply over to the comptroller's office. But in the back of the testimony, you can see on State Comptroller's fringe benefits,
Yep.
right, a net shortfall there of about $8 million for State Employee Health Service account is projected.
And retiree healthcare shortfall, is that anticipated to be taken care of with the OPEB trust fund?
I think at this point, relative to OPM's projections, we are not anticipating having to
For
use
last
the-
year.
for last year.
For the current year. I
For the
mean.
current year,
Yeah,
we are
sorry.
not. Yes, no, that's
I'm-
fine. We are not anticipating having to use the OPEB trust fund at this point.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, sir. Good morning. So, and also going through the listed deficiencies and everything, OFA gave us a sort of a breakdown of their view of the deficiencies, and you presented yours. One that's glaring, that's missing, is Medicaid. So, can you explain to us why that is not showing up in the deficiency bill?
So I'm happy to do that, Representative. So I think in January, when we were preparing to initially release the bill, we were working to identify. Oh, thank you. We were working to identify, how we could actually put together a deficiency bill. And to be frank, at that time, we were seeing more deficiencies than we had identified lapses. And I'll be frank, we couldn't make the math work. But we have been working with our agencies since that time, recognizing that we have the responsibility of ending the year within the spending cap, and so we've been working with the agencies to identify additional lapse opportunities and savings that may be generated, and we now feel confident that we will have the ability to put together and work with you to pass a final deficiency bill that will cover all of our deficiencies, including those within Medicaid. Again, just highlighting in the back of the testimony, I just want to point you to, we do have a deficiency listed for the Department of Social Services, net shortfall of $71.2 million is what we're projecting today.
Is that, okay, is that what you know is the deficiency currently in DSS or Medicaid?
Yeah, so it's made up of a number of things, but there's $85 million in the Medicaid account specifically that we're projecting, and then there's some other offsets in there.
Okay, all right, because we had gotten wind in January that was going up, and that it was continually going up, and it's not hit that peak yet, and for a variety of reasons. I mean, we know things are because of what's going on in Washington, and things are being cut back, the needs for people are much greater than what we ever had before. So, and to that point, lapses are dollars that are in accounts that have not been used.
That's right.
And usually when we conclude the budget at the end of each session or year, we have those budgets allocated. One of the ones that I zero in on, and I think I've talked to you and the Commissioner about, is our TANF account. The TANF account are the people who are being affected by SNAP. And when you have a lapse that you're going to utilize to offset your deficiency, that means that there are more people that are not going to get services. And I understand we have a high threshold for how much debt and how much money you can attain in order to qualify for TANF. However, we are probably one of the lowest in the country, and we have the need that's here. So to me, taking the 12 million or 16 million that's there should be reappropriated to the people out there by changing the floor a little bit so that other people can qualify, because that was the purpose of the funding. So I look at that and I worry, because I understand we're trying to balance our budget and everything, but we're also supposed to, when we appropriate money, we appropriate it because we have a need in the state. That need's not going away because we have a balance over here. So we've got to look at things a little bit differently this year because of the fact that we are disconnected from Washington. So I have real concerns about that, just to say. And then
Are you going on to another one?
oh, no, I'm not. I wouldn't do that.
I'm just wondering.
All right, I'll be back.
Representative Acker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, good to see you. So from my perspective, I'm looking, unfortunately, I just saw your, I reviewed my notes last night, and then this one popped up, so I didn't get a chance. And I do appreciate your briefing us on this. Can you explain to me the appropriation decreases? So so I think in your testimony, we have new charges, right? We got new expenses that we're believing, and I think you said 78 million, if I'm not mistaken. That's correct. And then you have de-appropriations. Can you explain de-appropriations to me and how, it's like 77 million, is that about right?
Yeah.
What are we de-appropriating?
Yeah,
Or
so-
reduction in appropriations?
Reduction.
What is the,
Yeah, no, I'm happy to explain. So the additional appropriations, those are accounts that are running over their appropriated amounts.
Yep.
So Medicaid, so we just talked about that. It's a great example.
Yep.
It's an entitlement. We have a projection at the beginning of the year. Sometimes that projection is inaccurate. We got more utilizers and higher costs than we anticipated. We have to pay those regardless, and so we end up with a deficit there of $85 million. That needs to be made up from somewhere in order for us to stay under the cap. If there was enough other lapses within the Department of Social Services, we wouldn't necessarily need to do put it into a deficiency bill. We could use the FAC process and actually move it from one account to another. But that's not the case, right? There are not enough other lapses or accounts that we don't think we're going to spend the full appropriation within the Department of Social Services. And so what is required in the deficiency bill is we need to identify other appropriated accounts where we don't anticipate spending the full amount for one reason or another. Maybe there was a contract that we thought was going to start in September, and maybe it started in December, and there's 2 months of expenditures we thought were going to happen but aren't going to happen. And as a result, we're not going to fully spend what was anticipated. In order to move that to the DSS account in this case, right, we have to de-appropriate it from the account it's currently in at some other agency, and then reappropriate it to DSS and Medicaid. And so that's really what's happening underlying here.
and that's what I'm wondering. Essentially, and I don't want to say that we overestimated the spending in that other department. It's just maybe a contract isn't coming through at the time, but that spending is going to potentially happen in the next fiscal year or something along that line.
In many cases, yes, Representative.
Yep.
Yes.
And are those de-appropriations identified in your testimony?
So they
Like where we're grabbing those dollars from to go into there? I see the spending component, and again, I do apologize for reading everybody else's testimony. And were those identified in your, like, for whatever reason, this contract in such and such department is not going forward, or we had not filled positions in this department, so we're not needing that, and are those departments going to come screaming at us, like, wait a minute, just curious.
Well, I'll answer it in two ways, right? I think so. The detail that you'd find that's presently available is within the bill itself,
Okay.
which will require updates as we move along.
Yep.
But in terms of whether or not other agencies are going to come screaming, we have been working with the individual agencies and trying to identify where these opportunities exist. So I think I think we're generally aligned, and we hope to make sure that anything we're taking, we're not taking something that's going to cause a challenge or impact a program that was otherwise funded and anticipated to be utilized by the end of the year.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Corpus.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the testimony. I'm following up on the good Chairwoman Walker's question. You had mentioned that we are, in some cases, appropriating state of Connecticut's funds to account for federal funding shortfalls. So if I understand this bill correctly, it's really sections 1 and 3 where there's more money being appropriated to the state's needs, whereas the other sections are places where we're cutting to stay under the spending cap. So does that mean that somewhere contained in sections 1 and section 3, there are line items which we need now to appropriate out of state funds because of federal cuts? Through you, Madam Chair.
So I think there's probably a little bit of a mixed bag there. There may be, and I would have to ask individual agencies to sort of respond as to what specific items might be related to federal funds. But I do want to highlight that more broadly, we do, the legislator, working with the governor, did allocate a federal response funds, which are outside of the budget. And so there have been several instances where we have seen direct federal cuts to programs, services, et cetera. And we've been able to leverage that fund. We've had 2 separate letters that have gone out from my office to the legislator, identifying appropriations to respond to federal cuts. So that's been our primary way of responding to federal reductions. But we do have, I'll give an example here, I guess. We do have still some of our agencies that are challenged with reduced federal funding. One I would call out is the Department of Labor, who has been faced with some holdbacks from the federal government that is making their budget specifically challenging. So those do exist within some of the issues that we're seeing in the underlying bill as well.
Thank you. Yes, the legislature's through you, Madam Chair, one more question. The legislature's primary response to any changes in federal funding was that $500 million fund at the governor's discretion within parameters. But in this bill, 5031, any federal cuts that we have to make up for would be contained in lines T1 through T36 or lines T155 through T163. Is there any such funding now from the state of Connecticut as a result of federal cuts in this bill?
Stand at ease for 1 minute, please. And you could turn that mic off, Josh. Thank you.
We can go with 2 mics here. Representative, thank you for the question, but I think just checking with staff here just to double check, and I think relative to what you see in this bill, it is primarily making up for shortfalls that are related to additional expenses at the state level and not related to federal cuts. So our primary, again, our primary response to federal cuts has been the Federal Response Fund, I highlighted the Department of Labor because I know that is one that we haven't taken care of through the Federal Response Fund to date, and that is a driver of their deficiency specifically, but otherwise the majority of these are really not related to federal changes.
Thank you. And just a concluding statement, if I may, Madam Chair. So when we see this bill on the floor, I'm glad we said this here in the Appropriations Committee where we really do get in the weeds, because it really shows the difference. We have a $500 million fund. I'm not sure what the capacity there is, but the arguments for this deficiency bill, which are valid, really don't have to do with those federal cuts. Because in the lines that I cited, there really isn't anything to point to that is a result of a federal cut. So I think it's important to distinguish what the arguments for this would be and what the arguments for this should not be. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And taking off of what Representative Corpus just said, thank you. First, thanks for coming. You know, this is probably the most well-attended deficiency hearing I have ever had in the last 12 years plus. So I say that, but in many ways, I think that what is happening within the confines of our agencies is we're trying to live within the confines of a system that is not allowing us to grow as necessary for the needs that are happening that are directly related to state expenditures, not federal expenditures. We have a whole problem with the federal government that I try to stay within the confines of the state expenditures today. And so we have some spending, we have some guardrails, and I have been a huge fan of the guardrails, guidelines, whatever we want to call them, because I want to stay as tight as we can within a budget. But when we are seeing some fault lines in state agencies, when they are not able to address that, when we are telling them to hold on to positions and not filling them so that we can use that as a backstop to deficiencies in other sections of the state budget, that to me is a problem. And that's really where I am while we're making statements. You know, I would just like to say that I think that we have to really look at the guardrails and say the moment in time that, and I and Representative Walker sat in the room when the guardrails were developed, and we questioned even back then, is this where we have to be in perpetuity? Because a budget is what we all call a living, breathing document to deal with the issues that are within the confines of the residents that are in the state of Connecticut. And there are some needs that we are not able to address. One of them happens to be in the Medicaid line item, where we consistently have problems. That's not my favorite line item, quite frankly. That is a problem. It's an entitlement. We're going to cover those expenses. We have not done our due diligence relative to active and retired health care. We know we have a problem. It's not a problem that is just in the state of Connecticut. It's a problem nationally. We should be able to address that issue. It's something that Representative Walker and I have brought up many times, that we should be able to put the right dollar amount on the anticipated expenditures for that line item. Excess cost in schools. We consistently don't give the right amount. I'm a fan of making the excess cost component that the state is responsible for, and you have to be very careful when you're talking about special education, but above the 4.5 times should be picked up by the state. But consistently, we're paying 60 or 70% on the expenses of our highest need students, and putting at risk all the municipal budgets that we have out there. That is one thing, if we took care of that, would help out many municipalities. In all due respect to the urban areas, it would really help out the very small communities who everybody knows who that special needs child is that is costing $200,000, $300,000. And that puts them on the hot seat because everybody else is having to, everybody else in that particular community is having to pay for that. We've talked a lot about CFC, and CFC costs you more money.
What's CFC, ma'am?
That's a community first choice. Thank you. And community first choice, it came about because most of our waivers have years-long wait lists, and even if they fit under those wait lists, they're not going to get help. Sometimes they're not going to get help until they've been in a nursing home for a lot of years at a much higher cost to us. So I could pick apart line item after line item here. I'm going to choose not to do that. I'm going to say that we have a deficiency hearing today because every state agency is in front of us saying that we have needs that are not being met. And they're not going to say that it's, to me, this is not your problem. You just got here. You have to face our tough questions. But we have needs that are not being met by the confines of our budget, and we try every year. Tony and I are talking at 7 in the morning on a Sunday to try to figure out how we're going to cover the real needs that people have. It's not unusual for us to talk. It's a little bit more unusual for us to talk at 7 at night because we're both older. She doesn't admit it, I do. But I just would really like to put into the ether that we have a problem because we're not meeting the needs of the budget. That's why we have so many problems here today. While we are making comments on the budget. Thank you. Representative Walker.
I think you covered it pretty much. I think that's the pain that we are seeing. That's the problem with appropriations because everybody comes to us with their pains. And so, unfortunately, you and the agency commissioners and everything have to hear that we have heard this over and over again. So we've got to do better. And whichever way we pay for it, we need to make sure we pay for it appropriately. But we also make sure that we look at the people and the needs that are going to be growing and growing and growing until we get a different change and going on in the future. Okay? I won't give you a long speech, so thank you very much, sir. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? We have many other people that you can ask your questions from each agency. That will be coming up in front of us. Seeing none, you're all set, sir. You may
Thank you
want to
very
have some
much.
of your staff stay here and listen in, or you can listen in from your office. Thank you very much. Up next is the Office of State Comptroller, Deputy State Comptroller Tara Downs. You're here. There you go, ma'am.
Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. In our submitted testimony, we provide detailed summary of the deficits and surpluses in our accounts to be addressed through the deficiency bill, particularly those related to adjudicated claims and employee fringe and supplemental benefits. Rather than read verbatim the full details, I'll just highlight where those accounts are. Much of these are going to be addressed through the FAC process later this fiscal year, but we're projecting a $23 million deficit in adjudicated claims, which, as you know, has no appropriation in the budget. State Employee Health Services, $43.7 million deficit. Retiree Health, $39.3 million deficit. And in the Transportation Fund, there's a $7 million deficiency in the State Employee Health Services account, $750,000 deficit in the employer's Social Security. And to be addressed through the FAC, a small $18,000 deficit in the Tier 4 defined contribution plan. In the transportation fund deficits, these are primarily due in part to the higher than anticipated healthcare costs reflected in the other deficits, but also the particularly harsh winter resulted in many DOT employees being reassigned to transportation fund work during the winter months, which meant that those fringe benefits in those cases were pulled from the transportation funds. And for ARP, we're projecting a $70 million surplus, which is really an accounting
And if you could talk about,
treatment.
explain what ARP is so that the general
The
public.
alternate retirement plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we're going to be, that will be used to address some of the health, the state employee health deficit. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
So the retiree health and the active duty health accounts, could you provide an overview of where we are relative to retiree health and active duty health and what has been done to try to drive down the costs for healthcare?
Sure. I might pull a lifeline with our division director, but as you know, these benefits are collectively bargained. But we do our best to negotiate or monitor trends to, address them through the labor management process, through the Healthcare Cost Containment Committee as we identify trends, whether it be in prescription drug costs, and, negotiations with our vendors. But I don't know if there's anything, if you want to come up, Ray Ellen, for anything beyond that.
And for the record, Ray Ellen, I'm going to be calling you about that data I've been asking for.
Good morning, Ray Ellen Roy, Interim Director of Healthcare Policy. So Tara hit the nail on the head there as far as what we're monitoring and watching for. We've seen a drastic increase in prescription drug spend, inpatient and outpatient facility spend. So some of the things that we've been looking at and working towards, we are working with our formulary consultants to monitor our formulary and to find opportunities to reduce costs overall in the prescription plan. With regard to health costs themselves, we are working towards steering members to higher quality, lower cost facilities in order to bring those costs down as well. We've also just wrapped our proposal bid for the medical services for the plan, for the active and the non-Medicare health plan. We do anticipate some savings coming in the coming fiscal year as a result of that. We'll be continuing with our incumbent vendors, but with contractual obligations on their behalf to monitor trend and things of that nature as well. And then lastly, one item that we are almost completely done with is our dependent eligibility verification audit. This was an undertaking that has never been done with any of the state population before. We have verified all enrolled dependents of all eligible state employees and retirees to ensure that the dependents on coverage are those that are qualified to do so. We are seeing a reduction in overall dependents. It was an opportunity for some not to just remove those that weren't qualified, but to realize who they still had on coverage and to take folks off coverage that didn't necessarily need the benefit. So we do see some savings coming through to the appropriations as a result of that as well. We'll be wrapping that completely as of April 30th, and after that point, we'll have a good figure and a good eye as to how that will hit the general funds for us.
Thank you. And do you, relative to some of the pharmaceutical expenses, see as a result of someone like the currently popular GLP-1 drugs, do you see a decrease on the other side in medical usage relative to diabetes or heart conditions or other things that happen as a result of obesity, for example? Are you seeing, because sometimes we can have a spend here and see a decrease here because we are taking care of some of those issues. Is that something that you also are tracking?
It is, and actually we've just wrapped a study. Our consultant Siegel have just wrapped a study for us on exactly that, and that's exactly the intent. We know that there's a higher expense on the prescription costs that are going out. There's an expense to the programs that we've rolled out to members, but overall there's a savings with their long-term health. We rolled out a medical weight loss program back in 2023, and we've just wrapped 3 years with that. We're already seeing a reduction in overall PMPM costs per member per month costs for those enrolled in the program. We had an analysis done comparing individuals with like conditions and like circumstances to those that are on the plan that aren't part of the program, and we're seeing a $105 reduction in overall medical expenses for the individuals enrolled on the program, eligible to accept those GLP-1s than those that are not.
Is that study completed, and can we get a copy of it?
I believe I have the final copy coming into my email box. We had some questions for some further details on that, but I should have that by the end of week, next week, and
well,
I'll be sure to share.
By the end of next week.
End of
Today's
next
the
week.
last day of this week, so that would be really helpful if we could get those studies.
Absolutely.
Representative Walker.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony today. So reading your testimony, you specify that the retiree health care account is projected to have a deficiency, which will be addressed through the OPEB trust fund. Can you explain that to me, please?
Well, I think the secretary indicated there may be another avenue that will be doing that. We know that that was under consideration, but
Okay.
we would be working with OPM to identify through the FAC process how best to cover that.
Okay. I just want,
Yeah.
I saw that and I was like, huh,
Yes.
okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions for the Office of the State Comptroller? Thank you. You're all set. Up next is Commissioner Gilman, Department of Administrative Services. And you'll notice the room will clear out as each agency talks, they'll all leave, so they didn't, it's like being in a school play. When your child's grade gets seen, you all disappear. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Happy Friday to all of you. For the record, I'm Michelle Gilman, Commissioner of the Department of Administrative Services, and I'm joined by Lisa Annis, who's the HR administrator, in part over our workers' compensation accounts at DAS. So Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee, my pleasure to be before you today and for the opportunity to testify on House Bill 5031, an act making deficiency appropriations for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. We have presented testimony. I will be limited in my summarization since you have the various numbers before you on our deficiency projections. We are projecting a net shortfall of $18.7 million in workers' compensation claims, driven by a number of factors, with some of the largest shortfalls emerging in the line items for some of our 24/7 operations, including DOC, DEMIS, and DESPI. Largely due to escalating medical care costs driven by higher treatment intensity and utilization around those agencies, higher claim volume as well, and then sustained growth in indemnity payments. We are seeing those same drivers across all of our agencies, but those specific 24/7 agencies are certainly driving up the costs based on those volumes. So again, I appreciate your consideration. Happy to answer any questions around the deficiency bill before you relative to our workers' compensation claims. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think that there needs to be some clarity around the 24/7 departments. So if I'm looking at DEMIS, DESP, and DOC, primarily DEMIS and DOC are not just 24/7. They have 24/7 buildings with people that live within the confines of them. A little bit different. DESP does have some people that end up incarcerated in some of their facilities, but they don't stay there months and months and years on end. They tend to come in, they get bonded out, or they get referred to the Department of Corrections at the next business day. So it's a different situation and not quite the detail that happens. The Department of Corrections has 13,000 people that are incarcerated and I'm not certain how many are in the Demas facilities, but would that not be a fair statement when I'm looking at the numbers here, that we're looking at two different agencies that are pretty similar relative to the number of people that they're responsible for, and that interaction that can happen between people that is not necessarily true relative to DESP on that level?
I think your characterization is fair. I would defer to those specific agencies around their operations, but I think that's fair to say that certainly, both DEMIS and DOC have, housing situations, potentially more long-term arrangements, and certainly also medical facilities within those operations. So definitely unique, and certainly a different situation than DESP. But each agency certainly has its own unique circumstances when it comes to those claims.
And relative to workers' compensation claims, you and I have talked before about this. So most people know that I worked in the Department of Corrections for a couple decades, give or take, mostly give. And during that time frame, I was a line supervisor, and we were responsible for talking to people that were out on workers' compensation at least once a week to make sure that there was a connection between the facility and the shift that they worked on and the particular person who was out on workers' compensation. Do you know if that is something that is still going on, where there are connections between the supervisors and the staff that they're responsible for? So if a captain had lieutenants out, they would talk to lieutenants, and lieutenants had correctional officers out, they would talk to them. Do you know, in the case of the Department of Corrections, whatever the ranking structure is in any of these agencies, do you know if that still happens?
Certainly. Senator, I'll defer to Lisa, who can provide some general overview of what that looks like at DOC. And then I believe DOC is before you today, and they may be able to provide a deeper description as well. But I'll defer to Lisa if you would permit us to do that.
I just want to make sure that there's a policy in the state of Connecticut for supervisors to stay in contact with people who are out on workers' compensation to make sure that their needs are being met across the board.
Yep.
I want to make sure that that's happening, and not, and not just, I think that's going on. I'd like to see something in writing that says that the state of Connecticut has responsibilities for people who are out on workers' compensation. When I talked to people that were out on workers' compensation, sometimes the reason they're out as long as they are has to do with the third-party administrator not being responsive on getting them into doctor's appointments on time, not being responsive into getting them the medications they may need. I don't know if that's true any longer. I retired in 2010. I would like to understand if we're still doing that, and if we are making sure and holding accountable our third-party administrators to the ultimate goal of workers' compensation is to get people back to work. That's why we developed the system. So I just want to make sure that we're doing that.
Sure. Lisa can provide some additional context around your question.
Sure. Thank you, and good morning. So to
You
answer
have to say your name.
I'm sorry. My name's Lisa Annis. I am the HR administrator at the Department of Administrative Services with oversight over our workers' compensation program. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. So to answer your first question, yes, DOC does still have an administrative directive in which they are requiring their supervisors to maintain contact with the injured workers. I don't know, I don't have the document in front of me that addresses it specifically, but I do know that they are here today and can more directly answer the question. And as far as the other agencies, I don't have oversight of the individual policies at the agencies, but it is certainly something that we encourage from the Department of Administrative Services perspective. We can certainly foster more context around involving agencies and having a more traditional policy if one doesn't currently exist through our communications with the agencies. You know, we have file reviews scheduled that involve all parties, so it's the Department of Administrative Services, agency staff, both HR staff and line staff, as well as our TPA is present at those. For some agencies, we're doing that bi-weekly. It really depends on the agency and the volume as far as the frequency, but we are having a three-way touch point with all parties on a regular cadence to address return to work issues and things of that nature. So it is something that we are always actively monitoring. I'm not really hearing at the present moment that there are any issues with the TPA as far as prescriptions, not getting filled or doctor's appointments. We are obviously at the mercy of both employees' availability and doctors' availability to schedule appointments, but as a regular overarching issue, I'm not hearing anything of that nature.
Thank you. I would expect that all three of these agencies that you brought in front of us that have significant overruns on workers' compensation would be the three agencies that are having biweekly meetings, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Walker? She's also, anybody else have any questions? I think you're all set. How's that elevator coming along down in New Haven?
I believe it's resolved, and thank you again to you and the Workers' Compensation Commission for bringing it forward, but I'll verify that to you in writing, that we're clear.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, committee.
Yep. Up next is the Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection, Commissioner Higgins. The floor is yours. I know. That's what happens. It's exactly like a class. Thank you, Commissioner. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ronell Higgins. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection. I am joined today by our agency CFO, Ms. Melanie Sparks, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. It's good to see you. It's good to be here today. You have my testimony, so we will, to move this on, avail ourselves to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. So I have questions that are probably interconnected relative to the personnel services line item shortfall of $5+ million and the workers' compensation claims 1.25. Is that are they interconnected? Are you having to fill personnel positions because we have people out on workers' comp? And what would be the ultimate goal? To me, the ultimate goal is to hire more troopers, but where do you think we are?
The short answer is yes, we are having to fill those positions. We have 60, on any given day, 60 employees that are either on military or workers' compensation.
60?
60, yes.
Thank you. Military or workers' comp.
Military leave.
Representative Walker.
I just want to sort of follow up with what my colleague was asking DAS about follow-up with workers' comp. Do you do a regular contact with people that are out on workers' comp to make sure, again, that their needs are being met and that things are moving along with the timeline?
Sure. I'm going to ask CFO Sparks to take that one.
Good morning, Melanie Sparks. I'm DESP CFO. Yes, we have had a historic practice of reaching out to staff. We do not have anything in writing. With the onboarding of a new HRBP, HR business process partner, we're shoring that up.
Okay, and you do this on a regular basis?
We do.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other comments or questions for Commissioner Higgins? So when's your next class?
Oh, gosh. We have a class in right now, Senator Austin. We, as you know, we've been really working hard to recruit. I believe our next class, Colonel? No. When's the next class? August. Our next class following the graduation of this existing class will be in August.
In the middle of hot summer, which I'm really looking forward to because I'm tired of being cold. But thank you very much, Commissioner. Appreciate you.
Good to see you.
Madam
Chair,
next.
I'm sorry, you have a hand online.
Oh, I'm sorry. Senator McCrory.
I got 2 meetings going on. I think you asked the question, how many individuals are workers' comp That was the question. How many were there out on workers' comp?
No, they said that there were 60 people out on leave, of which workers' compensation is a part of that. They had people out on military leave.
Oh, okay. Okay. But specifically workers' comp, is there a number?
We don't have that number specific to that, Senator, but the number 60 relates to workers' comp, FMLA, and military leave. So between those three large buckets, we have about 60 people per day.
And what's the total number that you have?
A total number of troopers or agency?
Yes. Troopers.
Sworn staff is about 920. We are
Nine.
still
Okay.
about 200 positions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you I didn't see that hand up. Appreciate it. You're all set, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Up next is Commissioner of the Department of Labor, Commissioner Bartolomeo. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for your opportunity to come before you today. I'm here, I'm Dante Bartolomeo, Commissioner of Labor. I'm here with Chris Levine, our CFO. And I'll just highlight quickly a couple things in our testimony. We're here regarding a $900,000 deficiency in our other expenses line. These result primarily from unfunded OE costs when we had associated PS costs for staff. It also has to do with implementation of the ARPA-related programs and not having all of the associated costs that come along with that for staff. We have higher than expected operating costs, specifically in utilities and in our motor vehicle costs. But the most significant piece of this is really the Lost Wages Assistance Repayment Program, which was one of the federal government's, I will say, unemployment insurance programs. It was the piece that came from FEMA, which was highly unusual, and it had conditions with it that we don't typically see, which was the state had to commit to reimbursing any and all overpayments that could not be justified, and so fraud overpayments were something that we were not allowed to waive in any way, shape, or form. It came in at $941,000. That's really only like 0.25% of what we administered, which was over $366 million in that benefit. But that is the amount that we could not waive in any way, shape, or form. We have already paid that. We have no continuing debt with FEMA around that. But that's what the significant piece was.
Can you send us a copy of that contract, please?
Sure.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. No questions.
Anybody have any questions online? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you
You're
very
all
much.
set. Up next is the Department of Housing. Commissioner Mascaro Bruno. Sayla, the floor is yours. You have to turn that mic on in front of you.
I always forget. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, distinguished members of the Appropriation Committee. Thank you for having us here in support of HB 5031, an act making deficiency appropriation for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. The Department of Housing is in the budget for $14.5 million deficiency. And that is a combination of about $10 million on rental assistance increases, and the other 4.5 was for cold weather protocol that was not included in the budget. We submitted testimony and other justification, so if you have any questions, we're here to answer them.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So relative to the cold weather protocol, the governor called more cold weather days than any other time frame, but I would say that 32 degrees is cold no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think that whole process of us trying to figure out how we're doing sheltering is something that I think we need to delve into a lot more. It's cold out at night right now, even now. It was 30 degrees when I got in my car this morning, so it's still cold. Relative to the rental component that you talked to, that $10 million, is that $10 million, are you seeing increases in rent where you're paying a portion of the rent? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, so rent has increased between 9 to 12%, and we just, to maintain the rental assistance for the families that we have in the program, we have that deficit.
Thank you. Representative Walker?
To follow up to that question from the good chairman, so are you increasing your line items for the next year? Because otherwise we're going to be right back here next year at this time.
Yes, the next budget does have an increase in that line item.
Comparable to 9 or 12%?
Let me just confirm with my CFO.
Okay.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, all right, so, thank you. Thank you very much.
Are there any comments or questions from people online? Seeing none, thank you very much, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Up next is Commissioner Demas, Commissioner Navarrete. I'm glad you all came in person today. It's so much easier than online. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This chair is locked. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, and Representative Nuccio, members of the committee. We're here today to discuss and answer questions on the governor's bill 5031. For the record, I'm Nancy Navarrete, Commissioner of the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, and I'm joined by Chief Financial Officer Cheryl Aurora. So you have my written testimony, but I wanted to give a brief summary and highlights of the current estimated deficiency for DEMIS. So as always, this differs from the original estimates included in the bill to reflect current trends and updated projections. The chart on the second page of my testimony gives a breakdown of this information. As the most recent 20th letter from today, DEMIS anticipates an $8.3 million deficiency made up of $7 million in personal services and $1.3 million in behavioral health medications. These deficiencies are decreased by an anticipated $500,000 release of PS savings and 2 lapses in the young adult services and substance abuse grants lines, and that is due to delayed implementation of initiatives. This results in a net deficiency of $7 million. So some items I'd like to bring to your attention. The PS deficiency is actually a 30% reduction from the previous year. So DEMIS faces the same challenges as hospital systems across the country, overtime pressures driven in part by 24/7 patient care requirements and national workforce shortages in key clinical positions. We have worked incredibly hard to reduce the impact this year, resulting in this significant reduction through instituting increased oversight and modification of overtime and scheduling processes, working with DAS to implement Kronos, a new timekeeping system that will optimize our ability to manage overtime, and pursuing targeted recruitment efforts and other creative solutions to manage staffing needs. The behavioral health medications deficiency has been an ongoing challenge due to the increased cost of psychotropic medications, particularly long-acting injectables, paired with the increased number of high acuity individuals. The governor's budget actually recognizes this ongoing deficiency and proposes to annualize the entire amount of $1.3 million to provide ongoing support for this line item. So with that, I'd like to conclude with thanking the committee for your support of the agency's mission and population we serve, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So you have high workers' compensation costs, generally speaking, at least in this budget.
That's reflected in DAS's budget, so actually RPS does not include workers' comp.
I understand that's where it's reflected, but you have the people are in your agency.
Correct.
So, do you have similar policies that were talked about with DESP relative to workers' compensation on conversations between supervisors and the staff that are out on workers' compensation? And are there specific facilities where the preponderance of the workers' compensation claims or actions are happening?
I do not have the breakdown of that information. I would imagine that the claims may be in our higher acuity facilities, places like Whiting Forensic Hospital, for example, which is hazardous duty, but we can certainly get that detail to you.
Or Solnet? Solnet yours?
No.
Okay. Thank you. So, relative to, if you could get us the breakdown on which facilities it's at, and if you have the breakdown on the shift that it's happening on, that would be helpful to us too. Are we seeing it happening in off shifts where there might not be enough staff? It would be something that we'd be interested in hearing about and seeing if there's a way for us to address those issues. Representative Walker.
Thank you, and thank you. Good to see you guys this morning. Thank you. First, I want to talk about the young adult services. How is that going to impact the service? Because that's a program that I know is well received in the communities especially.
Yes, it's a very powerful program, serving thousands of individuals. The 150 that you see here in terms of a lapse is really just due to our very busy procurement schedule. We've had a lot of reprocurements and procurements this year, and so especially when you're building up a residential and starting something new, it may be due to the agencies, building up their staff, recruiting those individuals to get it moving 24/7. So that takes time. Our contracting process takes time, and so there may be delays.
Will we have this lapse next year at this time?
Probably not.
Good.
It will be, this particular program will be up and running by then.
Okay. I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure because I know I'll hear about it very soon if it
Okay.
okay. And then the substance abuse grants lapse, can you give me a little detail?
We have a lot of dollars available to us through reinvestment because of the 1115 waiver. And so we actually brought up dozens of programs this year, more than we have in previous years. And so it's just the volume of bringing up those programs, many of which are 24/7, like recovery houses. And it takes time to do that. So again, that should be fully spent next year as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, you're all set, Commissioner.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You two. Up next is the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services, Commissioner Barton Reeves.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairs Austin and Walker, Ranking Members Summers and Nuccio, and distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee.
by yourself.
Well, not really. No, they're
They're over there.
they're over there.
You don't want to be associated.
I don't know.
They didn't want to
They'll
get
come
up and
eventually,
move over.
and they're online. Everybody, everyone's here. I feel supported. I'll just say that. I'm good. I am Andrea Barton Reeves, Commissioner of the Department of Social Services, and you do have our written testimony on House Bill 5031, an act making deficiency appropriations for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2026. So as was recognized in the Office of Policy and Management's letter of March 20th, the Department of Social Services has a projected deficiency of $74.6 million. This is in fact a net deficiency showing under our Medicaid account after we account for all of the shortfalls and surpluses and balances in other accounts. This is our typical standard presentation for a deficiency, and as such, The primary reason for our remaining deficiency in Medicaid are actually noted below, and there are two primary drivers. They are our rising per member Medicaid costs, which is reflected in the increase in utilization of services, growth in the higher cost eligibility group known as Husky C, and those are people that are seniors and people with disabilities, and higher pharmacy and home and community-based services costs that had originally been budgeted. So we do require additional funding, and we're making this request in order to meet our statutory obligations and to continue to provide essential health services to the citizens of Connecticut. We have in fact taken multiple steps to try to control costs, particularly in the area of pharmacy. Some of those include creating greater limitations and controls over our over-the-counter drugs, not limiting access at all, but what we have done has actually lowered the cost of what we are spending on over-the-counter drugs. We've engaged in an in-depth review of our preferred drug list, and we have established clinical criteria for certain classes of therapeutic drugs to ensure adherence to evidence-based practices, which is a practice that has been happening in other states that we truly needed to catch up to. So if we look at enrollment by Husky program A, which is our program for low-income children, parents, and caretakers, and in D, that continues to trend downward, whereas Husky C, which is the coverage that is provided for people who are senior and people with disabilities, continues to spike up, where we see a higher per member per month cost in those areas. What's also notable is that this year's per member per month cost for all of our Husky groups just overall is higher, which actually indicates higher utilization throughout each of these groups. You'll see in our written testimony we have provided a number of charts and details as it relates to each one of the Husky groups that I just referenced. What I would like to bring to your attention, though, is in the written testimony that you have in front of you, there is one chart that's entitled Quarterly Enrollment and PM Comparison. And really what's happening here is that during the Medicaid unwind, we had people who either had coverage in other areas or who no longer qualified for coverage who actually fell off of coverage. We consider them disenrolled, but those who remained enrolled actually were higher utilizers and had higher costs. So while we see sort of a steady enrollment in the number of people who remain in the program, the cost per member per month has increased. Next, you'll also see that we have had some pretty significant growth in the home and community-based services area. Our Connecticut Home Waiver, and as we mentioned earlier, and in other venues, our Community First Choice program has also seen exponential growth, both of which have contributed significantly to the increase in enrollment and the costs for home and community-based services that are beyond our budgeted resources. And so it's for those reasons that we are seeking a deficiency coverage that totals $74.6 million, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
First of all, Commissioner, I absolutely love the work that you do in the Department of Social Services. We've had these conversations before. Yeah. You understand the problems that are out there. So I have an opinion on the Community First Choice exponential increase. And my opinion is that most of the people that are on Community First Choice don't easily fit into waivers. And in the waivers that they fit into, the waiting list is so long that they would not get services until they were actually in a nursing home, or in unfortunate circumstances where they might already expire before they get the services. So I think that Community First Choice program is an only option for some people, in part because we have not done a really great job of increasing the dollars available in waiver programs to accommodate the needs of those waiver programs. And I don't know if you have them with you today, and if not, if you could just send us along to us the every waiver program, whether there is a wait list or not, and how many people are on that wait list. Would be very helpful for me to see where we stand on community first choice. So, in particular, so
I can do that. We
that
can
would be
get
very
that.
helpful.
Thank you.
Yes. And relative to LoSiP, you and I had a conversation just a few days ago on LoSiP. And the price of fuel oil or fossil fuels has gone through the roof relative to that. And I'm curious, are we meeting the needs relative to our clientele that receive help through LoSiP? I just got oil yesterday. I tried to put it off, but my grandson lives with me, and he didn't like the house being 40 degrees. I don't understand that. But
Are you talking about yes, Senator,
LIHEAP,
you were
I'm sorry. I said
referencing
LoSiP,
LIHEAP.
but I said
Yeah,
LIHEAP.
no, thank
I
you.
apologize.
No, I understood.
So he doesn't like 40. I told him that it was not that bad. All he had to do was put on a heated vest and he'll be all set. But when I got oil, it was over $5 a gallon.
Yes.
So are we able to, I'm sure that I'm not paying more than anybody else is paying relative to the respective costs of oil. Are
Right.
we able to service the clientele that we have? Are we seeing a shortage? Is there a problem relative to LIHEAP?
With respect to the clients, there is not a problem
Okay.
as it relates to LIHEAP. There are more than adequate funds. Enrollment is actually down a bit in LIHEAP. So there are more than adequate resources to meet the needs of the people who are eligible and enrolled in the program.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Representative Walker.
Thank you, Commissioner, and it's good to see you again.
thank you.
And I agree, I echo what my co-chair says. You give us data sometimes more than we even want all the time, but it's good because you analyze everything that you're doing, and we appreciate that more than anything. In regards to the Community First Choice, when we started Community First Choice, we did it with a purpose, and the purpose was not to put people into nursing homes, to get them and keep them home. In your opinion, have we exceeded that expectation, or is it that because we didn't have the categories identified that has caused the need to reevaluate the program?
So thank you for the question, and I think I'll maybe answer it a different way if you
Sure.
don't mind. The intentions of the program were to have individuals who may have been close to the level of nursing home care be prevented from moving into a nursing home by getting home and community-based services. So overall, that expectation has been met. What is providing a challenge in the program right now is that the enrollment is far exceeding the budgeted amount of resources that we have available, whether that is the number of people who are applying and our ability to get to the wait list of people and the number of resources that we actually need to meet the needs of the people who are on the program. So the cost is exponential, and as I've testified before you before in other venues, my primary concern is the sustainability of the program. So its intent, it's the philosophy of the program, I think, remains solid. How we execute it is really what we're trying to examine again, because that execution is important for people. We want to make sure we do it well, we want to make sure it's sustainable, and that people are being met at the level of need that's appropriate for them for where they are in their life stage. And so that's really what we want to take an opportunity to do over the next year to then determine what the right next steps would be.
Okay, so the per capita cost for a person in a nursing home versus First Choice,
Yeah.
are they in line, or are we still evaluating that?
So overall, and I want to get you specific numbers, institutional care, which is what we would consider nursing home care, is more expensive than being at home. So we do understand that. But when people need to be in a nursing home, we want to make sure that there's capacity and that there are homes available and quality care that's available, so that people have an opportunity to have a range of services available to them. And there are times when people become acutely ill, they may be hospitalized, they may go to rehabilitation, they may go to a nursing home for that purpose, and then they may come back. So we really want to create a continuum of care for people, but each part of that continuum has to be solid, right, and financially sound. And what we're feeling right now as a state is that the home and community-based services part, CFC in particular, is its enrollment is posing us a very significant challenge in terms of long-term fiscal sustainability.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Representative Nuccio.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sorry I'm not there, Commissioner, to speak to you in person, but I have a couple of questions I was hoping you could answer.
Oh, sure.
One is, do you have any idea what the increase in cost would be for the next year, at least with the biennium that we're looking at here, if we were to continue the Community First Home program with unlimited enrollment? Do you feel like that's adequately reflected in the budget?
So I don't have an answer to the second question. The first one is actually in the budget narrative itself, which I don't have in front of me, so I apologize. But that number is actually cited, what the growth would be over time if we were to keep the current waiver system as we have it. And I apologize, Representative, I don't have that document in front of me, but I can get that for you.
That's okay. I guess what I'm looking for is what you have in the budget right now. I believe it was like 9.2 million to transition this to a waiver program. But do you feel like even if this was approved, that you would have adequate time to turn this into a waiver program and the cost would be contained at the 9.2 million for the next fiscal year?
So thank you. I think I understand your question better now. So with all of the plans that we're putting together with our stakeholders, the number that we put forward of the 9.2 that's in the governor's budget, we think is an accurate estimate. That is correct.
Okay, my next question is in regard to the Medicaid numbers. You mentioned that basically the population is changing. The people who are staying on are higher need, and the people who have dropped off are lower need. Looking at, I've requested and looked at some of our Medicaid numbers at a benefit level to see like where the dollars are coming in, inpatient, outpatient, et cetera. Do we have adequate, you feel like, containment measures in place with like, when they're going to the doctor, what kind of doctor they're going to? Is it repetitive? Do we have programs in place to kind of help reduce those costs from a cost containment and a care containment perspective?
Yes, I think that we have dramatically improved those cost containment structures that we had in place. So we have because we are a fee-for-service state, we have a medical administrative services organization that works with us very closely. So last October, we mutually agreed that we would enter into a significant deep dive into the very questions that you just raised. Like, where can we do a better job of helping our members, whether they're getting medical care, dental care, or behavioral health care, to really make sure that they're getting the levels of care that they need, and not just for the purposes of cost containment, but really for the purposes of delivering quality care. So where we were able to do that, that's where we've done it. And one of the examples that I cited that you heard me speak to earlier is the example of looking at how we were spending our over-the-counter dollars. Because we were having a number of our members, rightfully so, accessing the care that they needed by our covering over-the-counter costs for all types of medications, when actually those could be purchased at a very low cost, or there was a generic option that was not being exercised. So that's one of the reasons. That's one of the ways in which we have helped to manage costs. The other are things that our medical director, Dr. Jody Terranova, is continuing to look at, which is the ways in which we spend our money in pharmacy, not just over the counter, but is there an appropriate clinical alignment between the treatment that people are receiving and the amount of money that we're spending on their medical costs, particularly their medication? Again, always making sure that it's clinically appropriate and people aren't going without the care that they need. And then there is now also, I would say, a different spotlight on the types of care that people are getting to make sure that those are actually clinically aligned with their diagnoses, and working more closely with providers to make sure that there's more collaboration in how those decisions are made. Not to in any way have our medical ASO or obviously us substitute our judgment for a medical provider, but there is a closer look being taken at all of that. And we have seen I think better clinically aligned decisions being made. We're in the very beginning of that, but we're continuing to do that work, and it seems to be working.
I think you're right. It's not about dollar amount as much as it is about continuum of care and collaboration of care to make sure that, we're getting the best level of care at the best price point that we can. We've got nearly 1 million people on Medicaid, so, that it enables us to kind of look at a lot of data. Do you feel like the measures that you've put in place, like when you talk about prescription drugs and stuff like that, do you feel like they have shown savings, like by employing these types of continuum of care programs?
I would say that the most dramatic savings that we've seen is the shift that we've made in our over-the-counter drugs. So we've been able to cut that cost by 50%, which is pretty dramatic, and it has not impacted people's ability to get access to the drugs that they need. We've also moved many more drugs on our preferred drug list to generics, which is also something that's done. I should also say that I'll just step back a moment and say, part of the philosophy or thought process that we're using in looking at how we are administering the Medicaid program in terms of quality of care is to make sure that the access to care is also parallel to the access of care that our state employees get. So we use that as part of the standard. So and we do know this, that state employees have to actually access generic drugs first before a brand name drug is made available to you. So that it's with that same policy and that same understanding that we are applying some of these processes to the Medicaid program. Just because you're on Medicaid doesn't mean that you should have a lower access to care and that you should have fewer drugs available to you. And just as you heard the Office of the Comptroller testify earlier, it's all very expensive. So we're all trying to work together to make sure that people still have access to good care, but it remains affordable for the providers of that care, and which is our insurance plan, which is Medicaid.
I agree. And I would be very interested if you have any documentation to show kind of like what continuum of care measures you're taking and how you expect to, because you're right, like being able to access the right level of care and on a regular basis will help from a long-term perspective. So I know we pass a lot of programs like to try to make people healthier or programs to help people do things and that, but sometimes we don't really just see how that comes to fruition from a savings perspective. And I think it would be better for all of us if we could see that, if we could look at this and say, oh, we put this plan in place, and in doing so, we're able to correctly direct care to, this level of care or that level of care. One of my big things is really the difference between emergency room and urgent care, and being able to kind of help people understand when they should go to each because there's a massive difference in level of care, cost of care, and when you need to use those two things. So, if you have anything that shows any of the plans that you put in place and any kind of savings that you are able to achieve, or any other implementation where it's improved the coordination of care, I would love to see it.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Which of course would go to the administrator and go to all of us.
Correct.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, you're all set, Commissioner. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next is the Office of Early Childhood. Commissioner Trueworthy, Commissioner. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, Representative Nuccio, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify concerning House Bill 5031, an act making deficiency appropriations for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2026. This deficiency bill addresses the $1.84 million shortfall in the Birth to 3 program. Birth to 3 is funded through state, federal, Medicaid, and commercial insurance dollars. Birth to 3 is a federally mandated entitlement program. It focuses on young children who are developmentally delayed or medically diagnosed with health-related needs and disabilities. This program provides a tremendous amount of support for children and families across our state, which includes referrals and evaluations along with service coordination for other resources. It is really a family-centered approach, focusing on parent coaching and other interventions for the child and family. What we are seeing and why this deficiency exists is due to the significant amount of increase in the number of referrals and in turn the number of direct services provided to children and their families. We're also seeing an increased usage in interpretation services in order to provide culturally appropriate services and supports. We think that, this is due to a multitude of reasons. We're doing a tremendous amount of outreach to families and community partners through our Help Me Grow and our Sparkler app and other community partners, as well as the Birth to 3 providers also. On average, we're seeing about an increase of 150 new children per month that is receiving services and have an individualized family service plan. We continue to monitor this on a monthly basis, and I thank you for your time and attention and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I am curious, Birth to 3, my understanding is Birth to 3 does not have a wait list, that you have to handle clients within 45 days.
Correct. It is an entitlement program, so all children and families eligible must receive services.
And you have enough providers to provide such services?
Our providers, our Birth to 3 providers, are tremendous in the work that they do and how they do that. They have seen an increase and obviously caseload and how they are handling that. We currently, I believe, have 18 contracted providers and 3 are specifically for deaf and hard of hearing.
And lastly, the endowment plan, does that in any way, are you seeing a shortfall in the endowment plan on what you have planned to spend out of there, or the programs that are related to that, and do these programs fit in under there?
So the endowment is specifically for early childhood education, so Birth to 3 direct services and funding does not fall under the endowment currently. We are spending the dollars that are associated with the endowment that we're able to spend this year and getting those out the door, and we are monitoring our spending as we come closer to the end of the fiscal year.
And trying to keep within the confines of what you said you would?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. You also have another program, home visiting program, correct?
Yes.
Home, which is not a mandate, it's a selection, correct?
Correct, all voluntary.
And you cannot, that has to be, the Birth to 3 is got its own mandated requirement, and so you cannot use the two interchangeable?
Exactly, right. So there are a lot of federal rules and regulations that govern the Birth to 3 program and what we can kind of spend dollars on, how the approach needs to work. And so those are two completely separate funding streams and programs with different requirements. However, they do work together, right? So if a family is engaged in home visiting services where a parent educator is going out to the home to help with child milestones, some parenting skills, or other needs, if in that process they're identifying that a child may be having some delays or some challenges, or the family has something they're concerned about with their child's development, they can assist, and they do assist to make a referral to Birth to 3, who then, if qualified, provides the more specialized services around those delays and disabilities.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Up next is the CTEX, and it's Executive Director Pritchard. Good morning. The floor is yours.
Good morning. Afternoon, sorry, where are we? I don't.
Morning.
We're
Still morning.
Okay, good, okay.
We're below noon.
I'm still shy of noon, great. Okay, so my name's Dr. Alice Pritchard, Executive Director of CTEX. I'm very pleased to be with you today to speak about HB 5031. As you all well know, CTEX has been a leading force in career and technical education in the state for over 100 years. We operate 17 diploma granting high schools with 11 career clusters. We have 1 technical education center in Bristol and 2 airframe mechanic programs, all of which are funded by the general fund. We have this year 11,700 students in those high school programs from 166 sending towns. So everybody is making use of our very good system. Though we're 100 years old, we are still a relatively new agency with lots of hard work to show for what we've been doing. And one of the things we have been trying to do is understand our cost drivers better to manage within our appropriated PS and OE budgets. Excuse me, however, we find ourselves with a $6.7 million deficiency as at the time that this bill was written. And I just wanted to call your attention to a few of those cost drivers. Certainly special education is a driving cost for us. We've gone up from about $10 million in spending in 2022 to this year, actually 23, not 24 million. In addition, we spend a lot of money on utilities. About $11 million of our $32 million is spent on utilities because we do pay our own bills for our 20 locations. We also spend about $4 million in facilities cost, $3.5 million in IT, and then we have some additional costs for our students. So we spend about $2 million to have DESPE officers as our student resource officers in our schools, serving really as community police. And then we also have student breakfast and lunch programs that we pay for, et cetera. And so many of those, in addition to the commodities that we spend in our classrooms, we're buying, unlike other schools, we're buying lumber, we're buying pipe, we're buying lots of medical supplies for our health tech programs, et cetera. So we have a lot of cost drivers that I think other school districts and also other state agencies don't have. We are working diligently to keep our costs down. We have done better this year than last year, but we're still finding ourselves with a deficit this year. We're focused very much on preparing a 27 budget that will be balanced while also satisfying the needs of our students and schools and our obligations as a state agency. So very grateful to the committee for your support and happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Commissioner, do you, I'm sorry, Executive Director, do you have the numbers of students who have applied for a seat in CTEC by facility that did not make it?
Absolutely. I don't have those with me for this year, but I do know overall we were at about 9,000 applications for 3,500 slots. We're in the final stages of figuring out exactly who's accepted their offer for a seat and who's coming off the wait list, et cetera. But I can get you that information by school. We can also tell you which town is sending to which school
That would be great.
well. Yep,
if you
happy
could
to.
put that together and send it to the administrator, and I'm sure everybody would
Yeah.
be interested in that
Yeah,
information.
we'd be happy to.
Representative Walker.
Thank you, and good to see you. Thank
to
you
see you.
for your testimony. Do you have any idea why you had such a large number of kids that with special ed services requirements were starting to be seen at CTEX?
So about 5 years ago, we only had about 9% of our student body was special ed, and now we're at 18%, which is the state average. We have some schools that are higher than that and some that are a bit lower than that. Truthfully, it's that we changed our admissions process. So this year that we're in right now is our first full lottery year. Next year will be the same. So that we certainly saw the increasing numbers, I think, as every school district has, but opening our doors up to everyone who applies, I'm sure has brought some of that about. Again, we're also just seeing students who have not been diagnosed previously, so we're the first school that is potentially, if they've been homeschooled as well, that we're the first school that is actually doing their special education assessments. Figuring out what the services they need, developing their IEPs, et cetera. So we're seeing a lot of students, but we're working to make sure that we can be the right place for everybody in our state. And so we have training that we're doing with our staff. We're again looking at, we now have an assistant superintendent of pupil services who's going to be working on a special education plan so that we can better identify the services that our students need and meet them. So it's a work in progress, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments? Representative Gajewski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good to see you, Director. I was just reading your testimony, and if you could have a breakdown of the $6.7 million, how much is special education, how much is, do you have school lunches, other disposable factors for, if you could have a breakdown and get that to administrator, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Absolutely. We have provided, I can tell you just quickly that in the operating expenses, $8 million of that is for our correct services, the third party that is providing us with special education paras, nurses, behaviorists, et cetera. But certainly can get you that information.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, you're all set.
Thank you.
Up next is the Department of Corrections, Deputy Commissioner Carlos, but I think you're really commissioner now, so. Thank you. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Yes. Good morning, and happy Friday. Thank you for this time to come before you all. I will summarize the testimony as it has already been submitted. So good morning to Senator Austin, to Senator Summers, Representative Walker, Representative Nuccio, and members of the Appropriations Committee. As mentioned, my name is Sharonda Carlos, and I serve as Deputy Commissioner of Administration for the Department of Correction, and here today to speak about our projected deficit and our appropriation status for the current fiscal year. That's a little better. House Bill 5031, the Governor's Deficiency Bill, represents deficiencies as projected on January the 20th, 2026. However, the Office of Policy and Management is currently projecting a shortfall for the Department of Correction of $5 million in personnel services, $12 million in other expenses, and $7 million in inmate medical services, for a total of $24 million before lapses. I appreciate the opportunity for us to speak further on today and would be happy to respond to any questions. I know there were some regarding the workers' comp that had gone forth.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So relative to, I put in a request to see the positions by job classification.
Yes.
And I had some questions because when it came over, it did not include either teaching staff or other medical. I'm not certain if you consider social workers in the medical side or social workers are just in there, but the only medical I saw were APRNs, and if you include social workers, I know there are more medical people. I don't know if the medical people are consultants that are there beyond APRNs, and sometimes when we print things up through CORE, it doesn't include those. So I want to have an idea as soon as possible, even as, because this is just a hit the button kind of thing. I should be able to get the job classification of every employee in the Department of Corrections so that I can see you have 20 correctional officers, 10 lieutenants, whatever it may happen to be. Obviously, those numbers are not exactly it. And relative to the inmate medical services, is that number relative to consultants, or is it relative to prescriptions and other medical surgeries or other medical care?
And this is the last question specific to the deficit or?
To the deficiency, yes.
Yes. Okay, so that is both, is that the personnel for inmate medical services as well?
It would be,
Yeah, go ahead. He said, may I? This is, introduce yourself.
Go ahead.
so
you have to give your name too.
Michael Regan, I'm the CFO for the agency.
Thank you.
The $7 million deficit for inmate medical services roughly breaks down to almost $1 million for personal services, and then the remainder would be OE. OE being other expenditures, would cover pharmaceuticals, outside medical services, supplies, and all the other things that, operating expenses that need to go into providing the healthcare through our system.
So back in 22 or 23, the department provided a list of medical staff they needed and upgrades in medical facilities per facility. I'm sure you have a copy of it already, but can you evergreen that, look at it, and see if it's still accurate? Because it listed medical medical staff that were already hired and the shortages that were there. I'd like to get that too, and as soon as possible on that. I don't need it today, but certainly by we're going to be up here on Sunday. We already have it scheduled, so we,
Tell people.
they don't need to come. It's just going to be us. And that table right over there.
Okay.
So if we could get that, that would be really helpful. Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony, and welcome.
Thank you.
I guess this is your first go at this. I don't really have any questions right now because we're still going through, but it would be helpful to have the breakdown on your medical. And the other part was there was one other area that we were talking about. Oh, workers' comp. Workers' comp, do you guys follow up with your employees on a regular basis to make sure that they're getting what they need, all the things that they are required to be provided by you, et cetera, following up?
Thank you so much. I was hoping you were going to ask that question to us. So yes, we do. Short answer is yes. We do have an Administrative Directive 2.12, that governs how we interact with our employees while they are out. Attached to that is also a document, which is a workers' compensation contact form. So our line supervisors make connections once a week with the individual while they are out. So say, for instance, if they're saying, I have an appointment on Wednesday next week, they'll follow up. How was your appointment? Is there anything needed? Have you had contact with a third party, as you all had mentioned, with Department of Administrative Services? So that is happening. That goes to our shift commander within the facilities, and it goes up the chain to the warden, and that is a part of their monthly report, the contact that is made. So we are making contact with the employees while they are out, and we have noticed, although we currently have 184 staff members that have been out of work greater than 30 days, but we have noticed that when there's consistent contact, that those that are eligible to come back have been returning to work.
When you said there are 180 that have been out for how long?
Greater than 30 days, 184.
Okay, all right. Currently, what is your staff numbers now, and how many are you short in your staff employees right now?
Bring that number with you, the 6,002. We did bring it with us. I want to give you an accurate number for the record. So as of January, 5,966 is our number. And then where are we at? Our vacancy is 199. And so 199 is the total vacant
199.
as of January.
And do you have a class coming anytime soon?
We do. We appreciate the Office of Policy and Management that has approved us for our next class, and that class will be starting on May 1st.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that 199, is that just correctional officers? So there are other people in that
There are
number,
other
right?
people, yes.
And your class would just be correctional officers?
It would be correctional officers, but if we're able to include other classification like maintenance, food services, we'll include them in the class.
And that way, because I think sometimes people think that you only have correctional officers there, but it's like a little small city and you have a lot of different people there.
Yes.
So if you can get us the breakdown of the number of correctional officers, the number of vacant correctional officer positions, and each job class that you have there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any comments or questions? Seeing none?
You're good.
You're
If I
all
may,
set.
before we walk off, I just wanted to publicly thank Director Michael Regan. This is his last hearing with us. He'll be retiring, but I wanted to say thank you on behalf of the department. Mickey,
He has been in front of us before.
You'll see me at the next FAC, though.
Oh, okay.
Not so fast, huh?
All right, up next is the Judicial Department with Brian Hill. Brian, the floor is yours. You didn't give me your title, so I didn't know.
My name's Brian Hill. I'm the Executive Director of the Administrative Services Division with the Judicial Branch. Good morning, Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Summers, and Representative Nuccio and other distinguished members of the committee. I have here with me today Ron Woodard, who is our Director of the Financial Services Unit with the Judicial Branch. I've submitted our testimony in advance, so I will summarize the key components of it, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. As of our most recent projections, the Judicial Branch is estimating a deficiency and is requesting a deficiency appropriation in the amount of approximately $3.1 million. This is can be summarized in three separate areas. The first area, software licensing costs. Over the past several years, as the branch has worked toward modernization of our technology, many or most probably now of our software costs have moved from per item one-time costs to subscription costs. Much like your Netflix, your Instacart, and your cell phone bills, those costs continue to rise year over year. And so about $700,000 of this deficiency is comprised of software licensing costs. The second area, as you've heard other agencies this morning talk, is related to utilities, primarily electricity costs. The Judicial Branch has a very large portfolio of both owned and leased facilities, totaling currently 70 buildings across the state. And so as everyone is experiencing electricity cost increases, those continue to be a challenge for us in our other expenses line. And then finally, and most substantially out of our deficiency ask is that related to premises maintenance and leases. And so we have, as I mentioned, a very large portfolio of buildings. Approximately 30 of our courthouses are what we would put into the aging category. It costs a lot of money to maintain these buildings. We accomplish most of this through property management companies and contracts that see wage increases for their employees due to the standard wage provisions for those contracts. And so, and then finally, as others have mentioned, the winter has brought many snow removal costs to all of state agencies, Judicial Branch included. And just by way of example, the most recent blizzard, we are still collecting invoices and paying invoices, but we are going to be running between $125,000 and $150,000 in snow removal costs alone just for that one storm. We will continue to diligently monitor these shortfalls, report through our monthly projections, and I should also note that our staff in the Judicial Branch is committed to continually trying to cut and maintain costs through competitive bidding, very rigorous cost negotiations with our vendors, and other measures to try to contain these deficiencies. We'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. I really don't have any questions right now. I know that you were looking at a facility in Eastern Connecticut, and that one fell through. Is there going to be another look at other spots in Eastern Connecticut?
We will continue to look at any available state property and private property that might fit the needs for that particular residential treatment program. And we will not be focusing on any particular geography of the state. So if an opportunity exists in the eastern part of the state, we will certainly do our due diligence there.
I think that the eastern part of the state has a deficit relative to the amount of beds available there. So I would like to see something happen on that third of the state's land mass.
Understood, Senator.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
No questions.
You're all set, guys.
Thank you.
Nobody else has their hands up. And now we're on to the public. First up is Drew Michael McGuiney. Are you here? Or online?
Should be here, but not here. Next.
No? Next up is Harold Foley. Are you online or here? Mr. Foley, the floor is
Yes,
yours.
I'm here.
Go ahead.
I would just add it as a panelist, so sorry for the delay. Good morning, distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. My name is Dr. Harold Foley, President of the HF3 Group. I am here to provide public testimony pertaining to House Bill 5031. I offer to this distinguished committee support of this bill only with the conditions as it pertains to line item T13, which is for housing/homeless services. These conditions will require DOH to provide a public line item by line item breakdown before any funds are released. Specifically, I'm referring to the funding amounts as it relates to the RAP, as well as the cold weather conditions. Want to ensure that funding is made available to all participants in the program, and that information is made publicly available and disclosed. Also, the subrecipients as well. There should be an itemization of how those costs are to be disseminated with specifics, including, as I mentioned, the name of the entities. Also, per project cost allocations, what does it entail? Rent, service, other supplemental costs. What are the requirements for the allocation of such funds? What are the selection criteria? All of that should be made available to the public as well as all participants in the affordable housing program. We want to provide quantifiable, I believe there should be quantifiable objectives as it relates to this type of funding. For example, the request of DOH is $14.5 million. If that is anticipated to benefit or to help support 1,000 residents, that equates to $14,500 per resident or per household. Those specifics, I believe, need to be disclosed in a more itemized fashion. You've also heard these oversight and transparency concerns from members of both sides of the aisle. It's a bipartisan issue. Most recently, in December, Senator Ryan Fazio at the December Bond Commission expressed to have more specificity in regards to a $37 million DOH request. It's line item number 25 on that particular bond commission, noting it lacked itemization of anticipated cost. Secondly, Senator Rob Sampson, through his remarks at the March 5th Housing Committee, noted through his research that an entity received $4 million in public grants with a total take-in of $5 million. Senator Sampson noted 55% of the gross funding went towards salaries and payrolls, whereby only $500,000 or 9.7% of the gross funding ultimately reached the homeless residents. This is unacceptable. And thirdly, Governor Len Lamont, regarding transparency, as per the March 17th press release on House Bill 5039, and I read to you, an act requiring transparency and additional oversight of the distribution of certain legislatively directed funds. Governor Lamont expressed that earmark funds demand disclosure of the recipient's purpose and oversight. I will conclude with this. These conditions mentioned above prevent waste without blocking needs and services. Please, I'm going to emphasize, this is my last sentence, approve the $14.5 million funding request, but require the detailed breakdown, funding specifics, and itemization of cost first before any funds are dispersed. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. We don't have any questions, but I want to make sure somebody's got their. We just want to make sure that we got your written testimony. Did you submit your written testimony too?
Yes, I have. It's in much more detailed.
Thank you.
I do have a
ahead.
question. I do have a question. I've, as of last night, I found discovered some supplementary information that I would like to append to that testimony, specifically additional audits that disclose more significant audit findings on the part of DOH, which speaks to the accountability, oversight, or lack thereof. I would like to supplement that written testimony that I've provided and uploaded through the portal am I able to do that?
Yes, you are, sir. Go ahead and submit that, okay?
Thank you very much. I'll be up there next week. I hope to meet everyone in person. You all stay warm. To this weekend, the Connecticut men's basketball team plays in the NCAA tournament, and the women's team plays.
Hold on 1 minute. Hold on.
Okay.
You're all set, sir. Thank you.
Okay, as I was concluding, the men's basketball team plays today for UConn, and the women's Huskies team plays tomorrow. Go Huskies.
Thank you. Up next is Sean Geo. Is Sean Geo here? Is Lilliard Lewis here? No. All right. Madam Administrator, is there anybody else that we haven't reached out to?
There is no one online, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So we're going to conclude our public hearing. Right now, we're not voting on this bill today. Madam Administrator, can you let us know the next couple of days worth of things going on?
We have nothing on the calendar currently. However, our JF deadline is April 2nd. So I would anticipate holding your calendars for that week. I would like to have a meeting probably the 31st and then the 1st. And that's it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Hey. Go ahead.